this is a practice that if you get into this practice, it's going to help you with those everyday, especially New Year's resolutions and stuff, those goals and those aspirations that you set, that you have to sell yourself into it. And if you don't have a good argument for it, you are going to win. You're going to lose.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Adam Platt, and welcome to Unleash Your Greatness. And today I have an amazing guest, Chip Eisley. And I met Chip at a speakers conference. So he is an amazing guy. He's a speaker. He is the sales whisperer, so he's an amazing salesman. And he's the father of 6 kids. And I'm super excited to have him on today and have us speak about what it really takes, or what in his view it takes, to unleash the greatness within somebody. So I'm going to turn the time over to him. Chip, welcome. I appreciate you being on the show today, and I'm super excited to have you. I know we've been friends on Facebook for quite a while, but it wasn't just till recently that we actually met in person at the speakers event that we were at. And
Correct.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. Just everything's, man, if 2020 was a bad year, 2021 is already starting out to be a good year. It's just, things are just, I think it's setting those intentions and letting them hold through the bad times and keeping them, that the good times start to pull in. And even if things are looking down for you, however you look at things, the intention is holding, and I'm just excited to be here today.
Yeah, I agree. And so I dropped my very first podcast on Monday of this week, my very first episode. And one of the things, what the podcast episode was all about, was how to go into 2021 and make it the best year ever. And that was number one strategy I said, is to set that intention to go into 2021 that it is going to be the best year ever. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I feel so strongly about that. I think 2020 was hard for a lot of people, but I think we came out of it in a lot of ways stronger. Mm-hmm. As at least myself, from my opinion, even though there were struggles and there was things that happened, man, I'm so grateful for 2020 because of the lessons I learned and the things I was able to accomplish. And I'm super excited for 2021 because I think it's going to be an amazing year. And so I'm glad you set that intention, number one, for the start of the show, but also for the first of this year to really kick it off as an amazing year. So
and we didn't script or talk about that at all. That was just that's just how it went. That's awesome.
No, that was perfect. That was a perfect segue into the show, because as we we're about the second week in January, and January for me is always a time to reflect on goals and setting new intention. And a lot of people focus on resolutions, and then by about this third week in January, they're like 90% of them have stopped working on those resolutions, and they don't exercise or whatever they've set up. And I think we really need to focus on what it takes to set that intention and then follow through and take action on what we want in this year, in any year, but specifically this year, coming out of 2020 with all the stuff that happened. And, the pandemic's still going strong. We're still,
today's 300 days.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean,
60 more days and it's a full year.
Yeah, I know. Isn't it? It's looking back at the year, it's absolutely insane thinking that it's been that long, that we've been going through this, wearing masks and social distancing and virtual events and all this stuff. And it was awesome. The event that we actually met in person was the first live event I've been to in like 10 months, which was great that we were able, it was a smaller group, which was awesome, but it was great that we were able to actually get in a live event, because that ability to connect in a a more interpersonal, intimate area like that is so powerful. And to just, be around people, like it's great to connect in that way. So sorry, I got off on a tangent there, but
No,
um,
I got you excited. That's okay. I like that.
it's been crazy this last year. My oldest daughter is over in England. She's serving an LDS mission for our church, like you and I have talked about. And she just told me she was able to call video chat with us this morning because it's her preparation day, the one day that she gets to talk to us. And she said that England just went on level 5 lockdown, meaning the only time you can go out of your house is if you can go out for one time a day to get some exercise, like go for a walk or run or some kind of outdoor activity. You can go out to go shopping, and you can go out if there's an emergency. That's it. So I think we're blessed here in the US to be able to do more than that. In most places, I know there's places that are a little locked down more than others, but yeah, it's crazy. So
We are blessed, and um, I'm going to share some things, I guess, now, just with what we've talked about, if that's all right. I got
absolutely.
You wanted me to talk a little bit about it, and I'm going to pull it all together here in just a second about what it is. But just to give a little background on me, and my sales story, and how that's all going to pertain to what's going on with COVID, what's going on with our lives, goals. It's all common.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing is, I really didn't like sales. I mean, how many people out there, if you're watching or listening, just mentally raise your hand or put a comment somewhere, because how many of us out there really do not like sales? Like, we don't like either side, not being on the salesperson side or receiving the sale, or being sold to. We're like, oh, this again. And I mean, how many times we get those phone calls? I don't know what Marriott's doing, but they have my number down and I can't get rid of it. And so I started it. My first introductory really to sales was, I served the mission for the LDS church, just like your daughter is serving.
Mm-hmm.
And that was probably my first real, what I would consider a sales. Now looking back at it, at the time, it didn't feel like it, because it was something you just did. And it was all volunteer, and we were doing things and helping people, and it was awesome. But I come home from that, and I got married, got my life started. I was working for a really big company, a bank, and everything was going pretty good, but we just weren't quite making it financially. So I did one of those things that I'm guessing everybody knows about. 90% of people have dabbled in, is an MLM. And I was like, cool. I love the product. It was water filters. It made the water. I was living in Mesa, Arizona. I'm from Arizona. I live there now.
Mm-hmm.
But the water was terrible. So it made the water better. Trying to be a healthier lifestyle. So I was all in on the product. It was great. Let's do this. And then I'm sitting down with my mentor, my coach, and we're going through, this is how old I am. You ready? We're going through and we're making phone calls from a phone book through a zip code area phone book, where you go by zip code, and just cold calling people on the touch tone phone. Not so old as rodeo. Well, I can't say that word, but
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. The dial.
The road. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. But it was a touch tone, and so I'm on it, and he's on another one that's hooked onto the same line, because that's how you used to be able to listen. There wasn't hardly speakerphone. It was only fancy phones that had speakerphones.
Yeah.
And so he's listening and coaching me through these calls. And anybody who's ever done cold calling, like 99% of it's just rejection or no answers or whatever. And this was even before like caller ID, that kind of ages me a lot, but those are the circumstances we're making these calls. And so finally I get that one phone call where we have a conversation with the lady, and he's talking me through all the, everybody has their scripts and their things they talk about and all the points, and she's very excited about it. And we get to the end and the sales part, and we're talking about it, and she comes up and she says, we can't afford that much. It's just not, and there's no way we'd be taking food from our kids' mouths to do that. And I'm like, I'm just ready to be done. I'm like, well, I don't want to take food from anybody's mouth. I don't want to do that kind of stuff. And my coach is like, just give me a second. He's on the phone. If you can see me, I put the receiver up to my hand and you cover it. That's how you used to put it on mute. You put your hand over the receiver. He's like, hey, I need to talk to you just a second. Just tell her just a minute. I said, hey, just give me a second. Let me see what I can do. Let me talk to somebody here real quick. So I cover my hand over the receiver too, because there is no mute button. And he's like, okay, this is what you have to do. You need to tell her that by not doing this, she's basically condemning her kids to death. Wow. She's choosing a slow death for her children. And it may not be right away, but by not choosing in on this, that she's going to choose she's chosen death for her children. And I sat there and I looked at him. I'm like, you sure? He's like, yeah, trust me, this is how it works. This is the best way. And I really hope somebody's out there is listening and takes note of this, because to my shame, I did it. I told that lady that this was if she didn't do this, that it would be a detriment to her family, that she would be basically condemning them to death. And she got really mad and cried and sad and hung up on me. This has been 20 years ago. And it's still such a valid memory in my mind, because it was such a terrible moment. I finished up that mentoring moment with that mentor. I went home that day and I never went back. Never tried, never wanted to, never was going to, never. Sales was done to me. I loved the product, kept buying the product, but not talking to anybody, not doing anything. Yeah. And then I find myself years down the road, gone into business for myself, need some sales help. I own my own restaurant, so I've learned some things. I've done some pretty cool things, but I wasn't there mentally. I wasn't all on board mentally. There was a lot of emotional stuff that I'd never dealt with, that I was hiding from. And I'm sure in other podcasts, you'll talk more about that with people, and they're going to be able to find a lot of great help here on your podcast for that. So I'm not going to dive into that, just saying that I was able to find some coaches. And if you find coaches, and I was able to come out of that, and I actually know that Adam's a pretty awesome coach himself. So if anybody has questions, tag him on that and get some follow-up on that, because everybody needs a coach. That's what I learned. Probably most of that is I couldn't do it by myself. Yeah. I got coaches, and then I actually decided to become a coach myself, became life coach certified and everything. And I was going through this and I'm like, dang, I need to figure out how to sell my programs and sell what I do to people. So I got coaches in that and coaches in that. And then one day with one of my coaches, everything just kind of came together, and I figured it out that I don't have to do anybody else's style, but I've learned from all their styles, but I need to do my style. Yeah. I need to be genuine to me. And there's the first life lesson is anything you do in life, you need to be genuine. It needs to be you. Don't try to be Chip Eisley. Don't try to be Adam Platt. Don't try to be, Tony Robbins or any of those big names. You can take influences from them. Be you. Figure out what that is, and you'll be more powerful because that's them. And if you try to be them, then it's fake and it's just cheesy. But lesson number one is to be you. Be authentic. Be true to you. Because what we're going to talk about now, what I want to get into, and we'll have a little discussion about this, see what you think about it, is people are like, well, sales, that's kind of a weird topic. How are you going to talk about sales and New Year's resolutions? How is that going to how are you going to help me with that, Chip? That doesn't make any sense. It doesn't work in my head. And I'm going to tell you, it works in your head, because as the great Grant Cardone said, everybody is always selling something. Yep. You are always selling. You are selling every day you wake up and you look at that vision board or that goals list or those resolutions that you've made. You are selling to yourself every day, whether you are going to do that thing that day or you are not. And there's always a winner and there is always a loser, and you were picking sides. And whoever has the best sales topic is, and the best conversation with you is going to win. Are you cutting out sugar? Is that, or soda? Is that soda pop talking to you every day? Like, oh, come on, this is so good. You've been doing it for so long. One more time. I mean, really, this is, can you taste it already? You can hear the crack of the can. Can you hear the hiss? I mean, some of you are probably getting mad at me just thinking about that stuff right now. But you're going through this thought process every moment of every day. But until you realize that you're either selling yourself on doing my goal, or it doesn't really matter, or who cares, or it's not an important thing.
Yeah.
You're buying and selling yourself. And when you realize like, oh crap, I just bought a soda pop. More than literally, I mentally bought this soda pop. I mentally am making a choice to not do what I said I was going to do. I sold myself out. And I don't really want to beat you up about it. I want you to understand that this is a practice that if you get into this practice, it's going to help you with those everyday, especially New Year's resolutions and stuff, those goals and those aspirations that you set, that you have to sell yourself into it. And if you don't have a good argument for it, you are going to win. You're going to lose. You're going to lose that argument. You're going to buy the cheap and easy Taco Bell instead of going into a really good Mexican food restaurant, just because it's that way. But or we're not going to make it from home. We're going to go make it easy and buy Taco Bell, and we're not going to save the money or the time. We just don't have the time. And yes, there's a value thing, but we need to build those arguments in our head, not our arguments, our sales pitch. And it needs to be stone clad. So when you have those resolutions, as you think about them, as you watch this podcast and you look at them, you realize the ones you've already lost or you've given up on, but you still want those ones. Go back into them and not just make it a goal or a resolution, but make it a sales pitch to why. Because if there's not a why you're doing it behind it, and I had a great friend tell me, Paul Blanchard, he brought it out, and it was like one of those like, oh, cool. Stop mixing your who up with your why. I'm doing this for my kids, for my family. Those are your who. And those are cool to have and make sure you have them, but you need to have a why, and it needs to be strong. It needs to be a strong why of like, why do I want to have sugar in my diet? I'm just using that one because, yes, it's one I'm working on. And so the argument thing is that why don't I want to have sugar in my diet? Well, my blood pressure is a little high. I need to lose a little bit of weight. And those are little whys, but you need to get down further and understand why. Because I want to be here for my grandchildren. Because I want to see my kids grow up. I want to play with them. I don't want to be on oxygen and a respirator for the rest of my life. I want to be able to, let's get down, and we play this game. You got to play this game dirty with yourself. You're not pulling punches. You're not being cheap. We're going back to that authentic. You have to be authentic with yourself. Why would this be important?
Yep.
Why is this going to make me choose water over a soda pop every day? Because if you don't know why you're going to choose that, you're just like, yes, I need to choose not drinking soda. You're going to choose a soda pop more often than you want to. But if your why of, I need to be around for my family, I need to accomplish these things, I need to be powerful in this moment, I need to get better than I am because the road I'm on is not leading to these other little things that build the whys to this decision. And we need to sell that to ourselves.
Yeah.
What do you think of that, Adam?
No, I agree 100%. It's so let me give you my perspective on how I look at goals. And especially this time of year, everybody's focusing on new goals and what they want out of the new year. And such a powerful time to reflect and ask yourself those questions, right? And to really get down to the nitty gritty of why. like you said, it's so powerful because let me tell you, this last year I set a goal to run 1,000 miles during the year, and I was able to accomplish it. And but let me tell you, some days when that alarm went off at 5 o'clock in the morning and it's 30 degrees outside and it's like, oh my gosh, I don't want to get up. It's cold. I had to resort to that why. And like you said, I had to make that sales pitch to myself. Like, okay, do I want to get up, or do I want to get up and hold myself true to the commitment I made to myself? Or do I want to stay here in bed where it's comfortable? And I won't lie, there were times that I did stay in bed a couple times, but for the most part, like, I reached my goal. I got up, I put my warm clothes on, and I went out and I ran in the cold, and I had my headlamp on, and it was dark, and it was, but the beautiful thing about it was once I got out there, and once you start doing it, because once I got out there and it's 5 a.m, there's hardly nobody out on the road yet. It's a Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. It's cold outside. I could just really focus on me and have that peace of just being by myself in my own thoughts. And whenever you make a commitment to yourself and you follow through, I think that you get something out of it every single time. Especially if nothing else, it's just, I did it, right? I got up and I did the thing, and it was hard and it sucked and it was cold, but I did it. And holding yourself accountable to those commitments that you make yourself is so important. And I love that you're talking about why, because if I had a superficial why of, I feel like I want to run 1,000 miles this year. When that alarm went off at 5, I wouldn't have got up. Like, I would have been like, eh. But I had, my deep why was, I am committed to being healthier this year. And I want to do something that's going to stretch me physically. Because in years past, I've always been, for about the last 10 years, I've been a fairly decent runner, but I've been a fair weather runner. So when it gets warm in about March till it gets cold in about October, November timeframe is when I run. And the rest of the 4 or 5 months, I kind of just don't do it. And so I knew that in order to be more consistent, I needed to set a goal that I would have to do it all the time consistently. And that's why I did it. And so I had to connect with that why. And so when you say go deep into your why, I run myself through an exercise, or I run my clients through an exercise that I call 7 layers of why. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've heard of it or done it, but
I've heard of similar things. I'm not going to say I've heard about yours, but yes, I understand the whole concept. It's exactly what I was telling. So please continue, because it's powerful.
So basically it's, you ask yourself why 7 times, and you force yourself to ask yourself, or like I say, I do it with my coaching clients, and it's amazing when you ask yourself 7 times and you have to answer that 7th time. It's usually about number 5, 6, and 7 when you finally are like, connect emotionally with that why. All the other times, like 1 through 4, is usually kind of more superficial. Like, oh, I want to look better in my bathing suit, or I want to, whatever. When you finally get down to the nitty gritty of level 7 is when you're like, usually in my experience, anytime I've done it with somebody, there's usually tears involved. And it's like, yep, that's why I need to do this. Because if I don't, like, there's something on the line and I need to follow through with this. I actually did this a couple of times last week. We were at a mastermind group with Kelly Walker. Kelly.
I do. Ran by Land, her husband. They do an amazing mastermind.
Yeah. So we're at that mastermind, and two folks that were there had, things that they were trying to accomplish. And so I actually did the exercise, and one of them was Kelly. I actually did it with Kelly while she was there. And one of her things, I won't go into detail about what it was, but she basically was like trying to reach this goal. And she said, this is what's holding me back, is this thing in my life. And I said, okay. And I ran her through that. And by level 7, she was bawling, and she was like, that's why I need to do it. And I'll tell you now, like, she has a deeper connection with that reason for taking action on that goal than just, well, it's something that I want to work on. Right.
Right. And I'm going to be honest right here. Okay. You ready?
Yeah.
I think the why is like half of it.
Yeah.
Meaning it's got to be one of the cornerstones on that building. You have to have that why. But I think if you find that why, the next step is you have to find out the steps to doing that. Even if you don't know all of them, but you have to start figuring out, okay, and we'll just take your example and I'm just going to apply it to my life. If I were going to run every morning, my first thing would be, it's those roles of accomplishment, and as you win something, and it gets bigger and bigger, and the thing you do gets bigger and bigger, right? Mm-hmm. So mine would be wake up, get out of bed, and then for whatever reason, for me, it just really starts. It's an easy battle to win because you're always battling that self, right? You're selling yourself. The first part of that is brush your teeth, because you got to brush your teeth, and that's a win for me every morning. Like, I've won something this morning, whether the day goes terrible. I brushed my teeth. I had a win at the beginning of my day. Doesn't matter what happened. Whatever you guys anybody wants to set it as, but that's one for me, is I always brush my teeth. It's a powerful win for me. Some people say their prayers and stuff like that, and those are good. Communicate with God, read your scriptures, get that prepared. That's fine. But for this example, I'd wake up, brush my teeth, put my clothes on. 2 wins, have my headlamp on, put my shoes on, walk out the door, take that first step, and then don't stop till I'm done. And then that's, and then, man, it had to be a whole lot easier to keep going once you hit that 500 mark.
Oh yeah.
Once you're about halfway through that goal, it's like, well, I can't quit now. I've already put all this time into it. Right. And those are other things that mount, but I think so you got to know who you are, authentic, got to figure out your why, and you got to have some steps in there that are actually obtainable. And I call it to me, that brings clarification, because if you just throw something out there, people say, oh, your goal has to be clear. And you're like, well, what's clear? I'm going to run 1,000 miles every day of this year. What's not clear about that? But to gain clarity is, how am I going to do that?
Right.
And like money goals and stuff like that, sometimes you don't know the full how, other than I am just going to work every day on becoming better at what I do. And sometimes those paths cross and it builds, but you have to build that clarity. Like, clarity comes through knowing what your steps are.
Sure.
So I think that's a powerful point.
Yeah. So true. And so I would call that, like, have a plan. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that you have to have like the full picture, the full plan. But if you don't have some kind of a, first step, because there's the old adage that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, right? If you don't take that first step, like you say, get up in the morning, brush your teeth, put on your running clothes, you've already lost half the battle if you don't take that first step, right? Mm-hmm. You're not going to take the second one. You're not going to take the third. You're not going to take the fourth. In my case, literally, you're not going to reach those 1,000 miles that I did last year. So, and I think that having a plan and then have preparation in place. So for me, like, I would, the night before, just to get in the right frame of mind, like, okay, tomorrow I'm getting up at 5 a.m. and I would get my workout clothes out and I'd put them, at the foot of the bed on the dresser so that they're ready to go first thing in the morning. As soon as I wake up, that way I'm not like, oh, I got to get up and find the clothes and stuff. And if you don't, do it and prepare, you're you're just eventually you're going to fizzle out. You're not going to keep
Well,
taking
and how long can you dawdle looking for your clothes in the morning? You
right.
can dawdle long enough that you should have done your run and been back by then. And you're like, well, I can't do it now. I don't have my time's up. I couldn't find all my stuff. It's somebody else. You're selling yourself short, literally. You're selling like, well, I can't find this. Well, I can't find that. Well, I can't find this. And you're actually you're being the salesman right there, selling that you can't do it.
Right.
And guess what? You're right. You
Yeah.
need to be the salesman that you can do it.
Yeah, for sure. It's I love the concept of selling yourself on basically every decision you make throughout the day. You're doing some kind of a sell in your mind to some extent, right? Like, okay, what do I want on my sandwich? Do I want peanut butter and jelly? Do I want ham and mayo? Do I like you are selling yourself on every decision, and every single person you come in contact with, you're making a sale. Every relationship you have, every time you talk to your spouse, everything we do is some sort of a sell on some level. So it's so important. And you started the whole conversation with how many people hate selling, both either selling or sells, like being sold or sold to. And I would say that probably the majority of people would say, yeah, I hate it. Like, especially that you start talking about like car salesmen and the hard sell, like you were trying to do to that woman. And it rarely ever turns out great for the customer, right? Or in your case, when you're selling yourself, if you do a hard sell, it's not going to turn out good for you either. Sure, there's times where hard decisions need to be made.
That's what I was just.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just about to say that exact same thing. I was like, yeah, if you try to pull a hard sell on yourself, you're gonna hate it, and you're not gonna want to do it, and you're gonna choose the other thing.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Because I don't know about you, but there's been times in my life where like, if I don't do this, then my life is over. Right. And that's a hard sell. Where in reality, it's like, is it really that dramatic? Like, if you do it, maybe something, or you don't do something, maybe something will be bad or something, but rarely does something really come down to that level of urgency that, and sometimes you're like, for instance, when you're choosing a spouse, right? That's a hard sell one way or another. And sometimes you're like, I feel that this is the person for me. I'm going to marry her. I think everybody has that first love. That's like, that's the person for me. And that's kind of a hard sell sometimes because maybe that person isn't the right person for you.
Maybe she's not.
So, yeah, it also comes down to what does your heart tell you? I think you have to listen to your intuition. You got to listen to your, I refer to, I guess, the conscience in my mind as my higher power, right? You and I are the same religion, and so we kind of understand that concept of listening to our higher power or our God, right? And that He speaks to us. But you can call it tuition or intuition. You can call it your gut feeling. You can call it whatever it is. And if your gut's telling you that's a hard sell, walk away. Like, just walk away. Because sometimes the hard sell is worth it, right? Like running 1,000 miles for me was a little bit of a hard sell. Although once I broke it down, so here's how it went in my mind. I want to run 1,000 miles. Okay. Get out my calculator. How many miles do I got to do a week? It's like 19 miles a week. Okay. That's not horrible. If I'd run 5 days a week, how many miles do I got to run each day? It's like 4 miles. 4 miles a week. And actually that gave me that's 20 miles a week. That's a little bit of mileage in the bank. So, and actually when I ran, I usually did more like 4:25, 4.5. And sometimes I'd even do 5 or something. And so I actually finished my goal 2 weeks before the end of the year.
Nice.
But once you break it down simpler and because sometimes goals feel so big and, I can't achieve that. And we base our ability on what we think we can do today as opposed to what we can do in the future. Because if I were to say, I want to run 1,000 miles, but I'm going to do it all tomorrow. Guess what? Not going to happen. Right? I can't do 1,000 miles in one day. There's just no way. Maybe somebody out there can, but I don't know anybody personally that can run 1,000 miles in a day.
No, I don't even know if I can drive that far in a day.
I know. But when I break it down and I'm like, okay, I can do 4 miles a day, 5 days a week with 2 rest days during the week. That's doable. I can do that because I based it on what I can do over a span instead of I need to do it all right now. And I think sometimes we get lost in that. Like, I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to lose 20 pounds today.
Yeah.
And it's not going to happen, right? Unless you go in and have liposuction or something, it's just not going to happen healthy. So,
well, and I know you've heard this analogy, and I think everybody's heard this analogy, but it's the how do you eat an elephant, right?
Right.
One bite at a time.
Yep. Exactly.
But what I've learned is even if we tell people, hey, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. They're like, okay, how am I going to fit this whole elephant in my mouth in one bite? That you have to think about that. Am I trying to make this whole elephant in one bite? And you eat it one bite at a time, but I need to eat it in one bite. No, you don't need to eat it in bite. You need to break it down and be like, okay, well, I'm going to start with the back right foot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to take me about this long. And this is going to take about this long. And, you have to make a plan. Otherwise you're like, oh yeah, don't eat a whole elephant. How do you eat an elephant? I don't know, one bite at a time. Well, then people are still really trying to put a whole elephant in their mouth. I see it all the time with goals and stuff. They're trying to put a whole elephant in their mouth at one bite at a time. A week into their goals, they're like, why am I not done? You're like, this is a bigger than a week goal. You set it like yours. It's a year goal. Most people, that's a year goal. Yeah. If you're a marathon runner for a living, okay, maybe you could do that in 4 or 5 months. That you're running every day, 20 miles a day. That's a whole different thing. Sure. But most people, we think we can eat a whole elephant in one bite, even though, oh yeah, one bite at a time, I'll eat a whole elephant. Yeah. But you have to make that plan. Yeah. You have to have those goals. And I think going back to one of the other things you were saying earlier is that we have to, to your own self be true, that, you have to know who you are. You have to be integrous to yourself.
Right.
And you have to be genuine, but you have to know who you are to do that.
For sure.
And so you can answer those questions when they come up and those hard things and put them in there and say, why am I doing this? And do your 7 why thing. But you have to know what it is you personally want and what you're going to do. And you have to not make that big jump into the whole elephant if it's something that you're like, yeah, I'll never do that. I'll never run 1,000 miles. And I say that and you're like, well, yeah, should. It's good and healthy for you. It'd be great. But I have terrible knees. My knees, I do a mile, I'm done for a week. That's just not going to happen to me. Yeah. On the other hand, I love riding a bike.
There you go.
So you have to be true to what's going to you. Be like, okay, well, I can't run. I don't like to run. I hate it, actually. What else can I do? How else can I achieve that? Because if you're like, hey, I have to achieve this by running because Adam Platt did it. He's amazing. I'm going to follow Adam Platt and I'm going to run 1,000 miles. No, you got to be like, okay, wait, I got a swimming pool. I have this gym membership. I love swimming. I'm going to swim 500 miles this year. Sweet. Swim. Do what you can do on that same path. That's you. Do you.
Yeah.
Be you. And that whole conscious thing, the Holy Ghost or the greater power speaking to you, I think it speaks more clearly to us when we know who we are.
For sure. Yeah. Who we are and what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Because I heard the analogy a while ago, but it's like a lot of people are like, I want more money. Okay, here's $1. Now get out of here, right? Like you got what you wanted, but you weren't clear on what you wanted, right? So you didn't ask for what you wanted, and you can call it law of attraction, you can call it higher power. You can call it, your subconscious mind attracting whatever. But if you don't ask for it, you're never going to get it, or you're going to get what you exactly ask for, and that's more money or more. What's a better relationship? What does that look like?
What's a better relationship?
Yeah. What does it look like? What do you envision a better relationship with your spouse look like? If you don't know what that looks like and you're just like, I want it better. Okay. Well, your wife comes and gives you a back rub. Maybe that's better. There you go. It's better for you, right? Yeah. But for most people, I would think they would say, if they really truly got down to it, like, I want a better relationship with my spouse. It's because we've got a greater connection, both physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and we are on the same page when it comes to how we raise our kids. Maybe we won't always agree on everything, but we can talk it out and we can figure out a plan. That's the kind of things that you need to get clear on what you want in life, not just, and it can go for anything, right? I want to be healthier. What does healthier look like? Does it mean you have more energy? Does it mean you're skinnier? Does it mean you look better in your swimsuit? What does that mean? You've got to get clear before you can then start taking action towards it. So,
it's I'm going to tell you a truth right here. You're going to understand it as soon as I tell it, and all your audience who have children are going to understand this. But children are the best salesmen in the entire world.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen them negotiate over a toy?
Oh yeah.
Have you ever seen them in a store ask you for something 1,000 different ways? Yeah. Have you ever not fallen prey to it and been like, okay, whatever, we're not doing that? Or how many times do you find yourself like, okay, you know what? They actually sold me into that. But if you watch, your children are amazing at this and amazing at setting things. My kids have gotten to where they used to come to me and said, I'm hungry. I want something. I said, well, what do you want? Well, what can I have? I'm like, well, don't come to me with nothing. You better come. And I think our higher power is the same way. Don't come to me with nothing. You want a snack? Well, there's a lot of things in here to snack. What do you want? You want candy? You want popsicles? You want water? You want a shake? You want a hamburger? What do you want? And then they'll come back and say, I want this. Okay, you can have that. Or no, you can't have that. That's not going to happen. But if they come with something clear, you can give them something clear. And they're going to figure it out, and they're going to start coming to you with more clear answers like right away, because they want something and they're going to come with a clear answer. And I think a lot of times we take, just like you said, take our things and our goals to the universe, to our greater power, and say, I want more money. Sweet, there's a quarter, there's a penny. What I want to be more abundant. What does more, if you don't with a clear thing, he's going to be like, and I don't think he's being hypocritical. I don't think he's putting it out there. He's giving us what we're ready for.
Yeah.
And until we're ready to ask for what we want, he can't give us that either. Yeah. Because we don't know what it is that we want.
So true. And it's funny that you brought up the kids, because my kids get, during the summertime, they get bored. And so they'll come to me like, I'm bored. I want to do something. You're like, okay, go weed the flower bed. No, I don't want to do that. Then don't tell me you're bored. I'll give you something to do. Right. And I think lots of times it's the same with when we ask for, we want to achieve a goal, or we pray for something, or whatever. It's the same thing, right? Like, our higher power, or God, or the universe, or whatever you want to call it. Right. For me, it's Heavenly Father. And for you, I believe as well. So, when I go to Heavenly Father, it's like, hey, I want to be safe. Okay. Or I want my family to be safe. Well, he understands what I want, but that doesn't always mean there's not going to be things that might happen. Right.
Right.
And so anyways, it's just, I think that we have to be really clear on what we ask for, what we want, and then do our part to go after and achieve it. Because if we don't take any kind of action, then we're not going to ever get anything, right?
No, we're not.
So it's just like you said, you say you want to eat that elephant, but you're not willing to cut up the little pieces and start chewing. You're never going to get through that elephant ever.
No. But you want the elephant. You
Yeah.
want to eat it. That's the goal. Can't do it.
Yeah. It's so true. And so I want to go back a little bit to something that kind of sparked a thought to me when you were talking is you were kind of laying out like you need to have your why and you need to have intention and things like that. I think one thing that also a lot of people get lost in when they're setting goals is when they fail, because there's always going to be times, like I say, when I was running, there was a couple times where I'm like, I just do not feel like getting up this morning. It doesn't matter how deep my why is. I'm sleeping in bed. Like I'm going to stay in bed this morning because I'm tired. I'm sore. It was a late night or whatever. Right. And so often we beat ourselves up because, oh, I didn't do what I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And we're hard on ourselves. And then at that point, we're like, well, I didn't do it today, so I'm not going to do it tomorrow because I've already lost the battle, right? Well, you may have lost the battle, but that doesn't mean you have to lose the war. You can get back up, you can keep going, and you can give yourself a little bit of reprieve that we're still human and we're none of us are going to be perfect.
No.
I love the saying that practice makes progress instead of perfect, right? We're never going to be perfect, but as we get better and as we work at it, we make progress towards something. And we're going to stumble, we're going to fall, we're going to fail, we're going to have hard times, and we just got to get up and dust off the dirt and keep going and do it again. So I think that's one of the main things that we lose focus on is people forget that you just have to get up and go again, even when you do fail.
And I had actually very similar thoughts. So I'm really glad you brought that up. That I wanted to bring up too was you have to forgive yourself.
Yeah.
Right away, like, I didn't get up on time. I'm late. I have to go to work. You know what? Forgive yourself because the guilt's what keep you from going it the next day.
Yep.
Be like, okay, I forgive myself. I'm going to do it tomorrow. It'll be fine. It's not a big deal. Maybe I needed this day of rest. It's my body telling me whatever. You got to forgive yourself. And we have to forgive ourselves often. There's actually a story, and I'm going to share it. I wasn't thinking I was going to, but I'm going to share it.
Yeah,
do you know J. Golden Kimball?
Yep. Of course.
So one of my greatest quotes from J. Golden Kimball. So for all those out there who don't know J. Golden Kimball is, he's one of our ecclesiastical leaders, or was in the past. And in our religion, there's not a lot of swearing, and it's kind of looked down on. But people swear all the time, but it's fine. It really is, and you'll appreciate this more. But really, so he was an old cowboy, grew up as a cowboy, but he swore quite a lot. Just up in front of everybody, he would say swear words. He tried really hard, but he always swore. And when a reporter approached him one time and said, J. Golden Kimball, it said that you're a swearing apostle, which is just a term for of leadership here. You're the swearing apostle, and people kind of look down on you for that. And how do you feel about that? And he says, I really just don't care because I repent too damn fast to worry about it. And I think to me, I literally think about that all the time when I mess up, that I have to get super fast at repenting or forgiving myself and going forward. All really repentance is a form of forgiving yourself and steps for doing that. So what we're saying is you have to get it in your mind that it's okay. Like right away, I messed that up. Dang it. You're trying to do a goal and you're at a thing and somebody hands you a soda pop and that's not a big deal. You start taking like, I drank a soda pop. Well, my whole diet's blown. No, be like, okay, dang it, I drank a soda pop. And you could stop right then. Forgive yourself for it and move right on. It's not doing it from that point forward.
Right.
You're selling yourself into that. And the longer you hold off the forgiving yourself, the easier it is to sell yourself into not doing it anymore.
So why do you think it is that most people don't forgive themselves and they beat themselves up? Because I have my opinion, but I'd love to hear your opinion on why most people do that.
It's the easy path.
Yeah.
It's just going back to the old ruts, right?
Yep.
It's easy to fall off of the new path into the old path and be like, okay, I'm back here. This is comfortable to me. This is easy for me, but it's the easy path, and it's not new, and we're afraid of the new. We're scared of the new, and so when I say forgive yourself, we don't want to forgive ourselves. Really, we want to stay in those old paths, and we have to talk ourselves into the new paths. And so I don't know if it's necessarily all that, but one of the most powerful parts of that is the reason we don't forgive ourselves and move forward as fast as we can. And I'm going to tell this as the truth, Adam. Nobody's told us we can.
Mm.
Nobody's told us that we can forgive ourselves and that we can be forgiven and we can move forward and it's going to be okay. We're all looking for somebody to justify our opinions of it and say, oh, yeah, sorry, you didn't do it. But I like people to tell me, why didn't you forgive yourself? Well, I mean, it's happened to me a few times. Why didn't you forgive yourself? I didn't think about forgiving myself and moving on. Well, you need to forgive yourself and move on. You're like, dang it, I do. I need to forgive myself more often and move on. And I think a lot of it's A, we don't know we can. And B, I think there's a stigma of perfectionism.
Yep.
If we fall short of perfectionism, then the whole thing's shot to hell. But perfectionism in and of itself is there's lots of subjects on that. But I think a lot of it really is that we don't know that we can, and nobody's told us that we could.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great insight. And I love that because I think it's that way with a lot of things, not just about forgiving yourself, but a lot of people are waiting for someone to give them permission to be who they want to be, or to chase their dreams, or to love again, or to um so many things that we wait for someone to give us permission for. And it's like, you have permission, it's your life. You don't need someone. If you want permission, I give you permission. I there dub the permission to go and do what you need to do and live the life you want to live, and to forgive yourself of the past and to move forward. Like, it really is that simple. Even though it sounds that simple, though, sometimes it could be so hard, right? Like, I know in my life, I've held on to things for way too long, and still I have things that I just had a breakthrough last week at that mastermind, that I was holding on to something that was stopping me from being who I should be. And luckily Kelly helped me work through that for me. And I had a breakthrough, and I was able to let go of some stuff. And I think we all hold on to some stuff, and we have to, like you say, give ourselves permission to forgive ourselves and to move on. And although it can be so hard sometimes, because there can be so many things that can be in our past that are hard to let go, man, it doesn't do anybody any good to hold on to them. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do your loved ones any good. It doesn't do your business. It doesn't do your relationships. It doesn't do your ability to have abundance and wealth. And like, that stuff stops so many people. And you can see it. Like, once you understand it, and you probably see it, but once you understand how that type of stuff stops people from being and having what they want, you can see it everywhere, all over the place. And it's kind of frustrating. It's kind of hard to see it. You just want to shake them and say, wake up. Like,
Right.
stop holding on to that grudge. Stop holding on to that past. Stop holding on it. Yes, that sucked. Yes, it was awful that that happened to you. But why are you dwelling on it? And just
Well, and
stop.
and I think this is why we have coaches, and
Sure.
why I'm gonna just tout. If you don't have a coach in some point in your life, you need to have a coach. You need to have a good coach, somebody who's good, because even as coaches, even as Adam just talked about, he was at a mastermind and something came forward. You
Yep.
don't see it that you're doing it all the time.
Oh,
You don't you can't you can see it in other people and you help people move past it all the time, but you don't see it in yourself.
yep.
You don't see it in what you are. And you need somebody to say, hey, why haven't you forgiven yourself? You're like, dang it. Holy cow, I tell everybody to do this one thing and I'm not doing this one thing on this one thing because our blinders are set because it's our life, right? It's what we're living right now, every minute, every second of it. And so we need somebody, even coaches, we all need somebody to say, why are you doing that again? That looks silly. You're like, okay, it is really kind of silly if you put it like that. Dang it, I am doing that.
Yeah.
And learn to move past it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. And having that coach and having that outside perspective, and if you don't have a coach, do your darndest to go find somebody, even if it's just a friend that can help say, you know what, I really think you could work on this or whatever. Or maybe not a spouse, because sometimes spouses can be a little hard to give you perspective in a constructive way. As
well, and they're living a lot of it with you too. So a lot of times they can't. It's tough with the spouse. Yes.
but a friend or somebody who can just give you some perspective of what they're seeing. I read a book recently. It's called The Miracle Morning, and a really great book on if you like want to set your morning up for success. He outlines like some key things to do, and you can customize it. Anyways, it's a great book. But in that book, he shared how he sent an email. I think he picked like 30 or 40 people. He sent an email to people, and they were like past coworkers, they were family members, they were friends, they were classmates, things like that. And he just sent this email and said, hey, I would love if you would be brutally honest with me on what I could be better at.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, it was hard getting some of that feedback, but so valuable because it opened his eyes to how he's portrayed by those people, his peers, his family, his friends, his coworkers. And he's like, if I'm being portrayed in that way by those people, maybe I need to look at myself and see what I can do better in that way. That doesn't mean that you have to be fake, right? You don't have to be like off, like not authentic or whatever. It just means what self-evaluation can you do on yourself? And so asking somebody, a coach, a friend, a peer, to just give you some insight of how they view you. And hopefully, if they're a good friend, a good family member, a good coach, they'll not only give you some constructive criticism, but they'll also tell you, but you also are good at this, you're good at that. I respect you for this, because everybody has their good qualities as well. Is there things we can all work on? Absolutely. Is there things that we're all great at and need to be validated in some way? Yes, I think that's very true. So, anyways, um, yeah, I love it. Get a coach, get somebody that you trust, and work through some of that stuff, because it's so much easier for someone else to see the vulnerable spots that you could work on than. And self-evaluation is one thing that I am trying to really work on this next year. I worked on it last year, but I really, really, really want to do it this year more, because when you can do that self-evaluation and say, not only take the criticism from your coach or whoever, but look deep in yourself and say, am I being congruent with who I think I should be?
Right. Well, I was just going to say that's a way of becoming more authentic. Yeah. If you don't know how you're acting and being for people and how they're seeing you, then maybe you think you're acting one way, but you're not.
Right.
And to get to acting the way you want to, you actually need to change something.
Sure.
And not change, but at least work on it so that what you think you're doing is what you're actually doing. Yep. And we all have character things that we can work on, let's just be honest. But we can just, if you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you don't know, like, well, you look like you're sucking on a lemon every time you talk to me, and I feel like I mean, I've done this, what you're talking about, and it is brutal, it is hard. Mm-hmm. But if you take it with an open heart, like they're trying to be honest to help you, then it helps you change. It's made me become more authentic in what I do, what I say, how I act. You're not going to find me talking on this podcast, meet me in the restaurant someplace. This is me. This is who I am. This is how I come across. If you want to talk about something, we're going to talk about something. If you don't want to talk about it, okay, that's fine. But it's just, I've learned to love who I am. And that's a big thing for me to say. That was not what I did. I had to learn who I was. And then I learned how to love that person that I was. And then once I figured out, oh crap, I didn't even know what love was until I figured out that I could love myself. And now my love for everybody else is huge. Nobody told me that. And I had to find that, and I had to have help finding that. And I know that I'm here because a lot of what we just talked about, goals and that stuff, but also the understanding who I am, asking people who they thought I was. I literally coach people to do that because it's very powerful. And there's two ways I do it, with the, hey, what can I do better? And also, hey, what do you like about me? Because some people just don't think they're likable at all.
Yeah.
And when all of a sudden you have 50 people telling you, well, you're great at this, you're amazing at that, and they're all a lot the same, then you have irrefutable facts of very important people to you that you are a good person. Absolutely. That you are on the right path as well. So
yeah,
it's just powerful.
Very powerful. So powerful. I would urge anybody who is struggling with feeling like they're not who they are, or not being true to themselves, to do that activity. Just go put it on Facebook, post it out there, and say, hey, what do you like about me? I guarantee that there's so many people. I've done it too, and it's amazing. People that maybe you didn't know were watching you, or didn't think they knew you very well, they will give you something like, hey, I really think that you're good at this, or I just like your smile, or just maybe it's something simple, but it's going to be something that you'll be like, wow, that really is really amazing that person noticed that about me.
Yeah.
And then the people who do know you, they will give you great feedback on what they like. So yeah, so valuable, and such a great builder of, your self-esteem. And not that we all need to be like built up all the time and stuff. I think we all deserve to be validated from time to time. And because we all want to be accepted and loved. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and the podcast was talking about confidence, and people are like, or the podcast host was saying, a lot of people go around saying, I don't care what anybody thinks about me, I'm going to be who I am. And he's like, those people who say that, they don't understand what real confidence is, because we all want to be loved. We all want to be accepted. And so we all need to act in a way that we feel like we can be loved and accepted. Now, caring what other people think is different than not wanting to be loved by people, right? That's completely different. And what they're really saying when I don't care what other people think is they don't care what other people, their opinion is, right? So,
or their expectation of them is, or yes.
Yeah, good, true. And so we have to be careful when we just put out there like, I'm going to be who I am, and I don't care what anybody thinks, right? Because we all care about what somebody thinks, even if it's just our mom or our dad or our spouse or somebody, right? Somebody should care about what we're doing or saying, or we should care what they think about us, because we want to be loved by somebody. So, yeah. So, this has been absolutely amazing. I love the whole sales concept of, you're selling yourself every conversation you have on what action you're going to take, what goal you're going to set, if you're going to work on it, what you're going to do. I want to ask you a question that I like to ask during all my interviews. And that is, if you were to pick one to maybe three things that you would say somebody who needs to unlock or unleash their greatness within themselves, what they need to do, what would those be?
Number one, if you want to unlock your greatness and to get to be a fullness, you need to understand who you are. You need to understand No, you don't need to understand. You need to love yourself. And not like in a weird like way, but you need to love you in a way that you feel like it doesn't really matter. Like we were just talking about, like, oh, I don't care what other people say. You need to love you enough that you really don't care what people say, because yeah, it's going to affect you and you can work and grow on it, but it's okay because you love yourself enough that it's okay. And I'm not talking like in this morbidly way that people put it out there where um, they love themselves over everybody else and they don't care. No, when you love yourself, you care more for others. You're
Yeah.
able to help others more. You're able to give more. You're able to share more. You're able to help more because you understand what love is. So if you really want to break through, you want to start doing something huge in your life, if you want to make that, you need to first figure out um, how to love yourself and understand that you do love yourself. And then once you understand that you love yourself, you got to understand who you are authentically,
Yeah.
who you really are. Like, seriously, that took some work for me, even down to my wardrobe, like what shirts I like. I like long sleeve button up shirts. Okay. I really don't care for t-shirts. People are like, what? You don't like, I don't care for t-shirts. I like long sleeve button up shirts. I'll wear them every day. I'm happy. They make me happy. I had to figure that out. I did not know that. That's where I was. Is like, so you got to figure out who you are authentically.
Yeah.
I love this style of hat. It's my favorite style. People are like, well, that's cool-ish, but why? It's just this golf hat. I love it. It makes me feel like me. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And if you really, really want to break through, you have to understand those are, if you're not, if you have a lot of questions and you want someplace to go, those are the two things that if you can do those two things, all your other goals are going to fall into place more easily. Your learning is going to fall into place more easily. Your relationship goals are going to fall into place more. Everything hinges on those two things, and I know we've talked a little more religion than probably you like, but the two great commandments: love the Lord your God as yourself. I mean, you know, it's love the Lord your God and love your neighbor as yourself.
Yep.
Basically, you cannot love your neighbor if you don't love yourself. That's what it says. So if you think, oh, well, I don't like myself, but I like all my neighbors, you are lying. In order to truly love your neighbors, to truly love your clients, to truly love those people in your life, you have to love yourself. And that's what it comes down to. And I'm just going to give those two, because if you can get those two things mastered, life becomes easier. It becomes funner. It becomes a place where you want to live because, dang it, that's where you do live. It's just, and you become who you are and you love that person.
Yeah, for sure. No, I love those two takeaways for sure. And yeah, love yourself and be authentic to who you are is everything. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, if you don't love yourself, like you say, you can't love anybody else. You got to love yourself first. And you're never going to find love if you don't love yourself. Sure, people tell you that they love you and things like that, but you're not going to believe it if you don't love yourself. If you don't love yourself, you're going to be like, why would they love me? Why would anyone love me? Right? You're never going to be loved
Yep.
truly if you don't love yourself.
You're
And
going to find yourself a lot of jealousy. You're going to be jealous of people. If you like, oh, I'm so jealous of them, you really don't love yourself. I'm sorry. That's just the truth. If you're
yeah,
jealous of somebody else, it's because you haven't found that yet.
yeah, so true. Yeah, I agree 100%. So, Chip, I have just absolutely loved our conversation and you've had some amazing insights. I want to just ask where, if people want to connect with you, where is the best place to do that? Social media, website, whatever. What's the best place for people to connect with you if they want to learn more about you and what you do and how you can
Yeah.
help them?
Awesome. So if you want to connect with me, I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram. On Instagram, I'm under Selling Seriously. On Facebook, I'm at Selling Seriously as well. Those are my pages. They lead to a bunch of other things, but those are great ways to get a hold of me real fast, real easy. Um, I am on Clubhouse at Chip Eisley. So it's a new form that I don't know. It's kicking off. Someday people will listen to this and be like, haha, it was just the start of Clubhouse when he said that. So I'm on Clubhouse at Chip Eisley.
Cool.
You can follow me there as well as on Instagram. Those are my email address is just sellingseriously@gmail.com. So those are three great, easy ways of getting in touch with me. If you have any questions, please shoot them my way, and we'll get back with you. And honestly, guys, I'm gonna say something here. If you want a good coach, we've talked about that. Reach out to Mr. Platt there. He has some things figured out, and if he's not your coach, we know enough coaches. We can find somebody that's going to be your fit, and we'd love to help you find somebody that's going to help you become a better. We want to help the world become better.
Yeah.
So,
and that is one of the amazing things I love about you, Chip, is you just want to give. And thank you so much for that, those kind words. But you truly just authentically want to give and help and serve. And so thank you for all that you do. It gets amazing. You're a great individual. I look forward to when we can see more of each other in person. I know we're going to run into each other a lot more, especially this next year as things start opening up and there's more events and things like that. I think you're going on Kelly's cruise, aren't you?
Yes.
Later this year. Yeah.
Yeah. If all that keeps going, with cruises keep going, Kelly's cruise. I'm working on seeing about going to England with her.
Yeah.
I'm going to Disneyland, Disney World again already this year. That's already set up and going. I got some incredible things happening in my life. So I'm super excited. And it is because I set intentions. I set goals, and everything's starting to. Did it take a little longer? Yeah, but I kept my intentions, and it's gonna be a great year.
It's going to be an awesome year. I can't wait for the ability to see all the things that you're going to accomplish. I love seeing your post. I love seeing everything that you're doing. You're doing some awesome things. You're involved with some amazing people. And so for those of you, if you want to coach on speaking or selling or anything like that, Chip is the man. He's awesome. And reach out to him. And again, if you need a coach for anything between Chip and I, and we can hook you up with somebody. There's coaches for everything. There's literally coaches for any problem you can possibly think of. And coaches are so valuable to really help you get moving in the direction that you want to go and achieve those goals in the long term. So Chip, it's been awesome. Your insight has been just amazing. I appreciate it. The conversation was great. It's always great to talk to you. But thank you so much for coming on. And yeah.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for believing in me, because I know when we first talked, you're like, how are you going to work sales into this? and we did talk about it a little bit. And thanks for trusting me and bringing me on. And it was a wonderful conversation, and it was a lot of fun.
Yep. And it was a sales pitch that you had with me, and it worked. And so I'm glad that it did. I'm happy that we had you on there. So, all right, everybody, be sure to subscribe and go follow Chip. But have a great day and go start taking action towards your dreams and your goals today. You have permission. Go get it done. So, everybody, have a wonderful day.